one bloke, he's got an Albanian bloke here.
Okay, stop. You're getting recorded.
All right, okay.
Can you do my visitor thing? I gave him a cheap price, and he goes, "Oh, that's too expensive." And I said, "Well, you're not going to want to know the figure for the 108, so see you later." Is it recording?
Yes.
Oh, well, okay. Preston, what will you just go over that again, that summary?
Well, I think we have this meeting, all right, and then I believe we all agree, the three of us, that strategically, I think it would be a good idea for us to make the demarcation of duties clearly. So we three of us from Australia, we will be responsible for getting the positions from the employers, okay, and then getting the approval for the sponsorship application, and then assisting the whole exercise in eventually getting the employee into the Philippines. Now, we will leave the actual training of the applicants, English particularly, all right, in the hands of our Filipino partners. Okay, there will basically be Mr. Wit Ong, who will be very heavily involved with the training of English, and then we will probably have to involve the mayor of Romblon, okay, who will be the liaison person and organizing the supply of the skilled staff, and as well as the financier, okay, the person who is going to provide finance to make sure the whole project works. Now, obviously, the whole idea is we're involving so many people because we want to make sure that what we are trying to do is not only just stonemasons. We want to make it happen so that it can be applied to other occupations. We've also mentioned about the health education, the medical and health sector, which, I understand it's a very specialized sort of field that we need to do a little more work on it. But by the same token, apart from stonemason, we can do other things as well.
Yeah.
Carpenters.
Look, I'm happy. We've gone through a few. We've gone through a few things. See if I'm on there. We've crunched a few numbers, and what's happened is we've gone right down to the bone. They're numbers that we wouldn't charge on an individual basis here in Australia for any aspect of this work. We're just doing something which is going to be compatible, and when I say compatible, it's a loose word to use, but something which would make an appealing prospect for all parties concerned. There's no advantage to one party in the way we've set up our costing structure across the board for our component. It's a win-win situation. It's a win for the employer in Australia, not only because he gets what he's dearly looking for and he can't find at this stage, which is competent staff, but financially, it's unheard of someone doing it for the price that we'll discuss when we actually meet whoever is watching this video if he's a stakeholder. Now, what I really don't want is we're going and we're cutting to the bone and then unscrupulous methods being used on the actual applicants overseas. We just don't want to be party of anything that's to do with wrongdoing. Everything must be above board. That's all I've got to say about it. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, look, I don't have much to say except just reiterate what Frank said. The prices that I'd be charging for the migration side will be at least 20% less, but we're working on volume and getting an outcome for people in the Philippines and the Australian employees and everyone else involved. So in the end, everyone should be happy with the end product.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I'll just, by way of introduction, I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Arthur VASILOPOULOS. Now, he is a gentleman who has been working for the immigration department for over 30 years. All right, and then he resigned or retired, and then after that he's been sort of running his own practice for migration for over 20 years. So he's very well experienced, and I'm sure we will be benefited from his the wealth of experience that we will bring into our whole package or whole team. Now and then, let's come to this other guy, this other gentleman here, Mr. Frank NIRTA. Is a gentleman from very well connected with the Italian communities in Australia. Now, tell me, Frank, how many stonemason positions you reckon you'll be able to sort of get hold of?
The minimum spread across 4 or 5 different companies, spread out over Victoria alone. I'd say minimum of 30 positions to start us off and get us going. And then they would be on a reoccurring basis, because I know of companies, I'm being very conservative with those figures based on what I've been requested. And sadly, we couldn't fulfill the requirement because there was a few logistical things, and we were under the impression, because I didn't get the advice from a registered migration agent at the time, and I thought that you had to have Trade Recognition Australia approval, whereby I was advised by migration agents, registered migration agents I might add, that have told me that there's no requirement for TRA on this, whereby they could come back with a follow-up request on this trade recognition. So now that I've got the green light that the Philippines doesn't come on the list for trades that need approval from TRA, it just makes my life a lot easier. All we've got to do is get the protocol out of the way with the POEA and do whatever we need to do to lead in and make this a legitimate business venture, because I don't want to inadvertently find myself in a position where I'd have to fly to the Philippines overnight or something, and on arrival find myself under arrest because we haven't done things properly. That's about all I've got to say on the matter.
Okay. Arthur, would you like to sort of add some more comments before we sign off?
Yeah, look, just one last thing. Obviously, the people that will be seeking to come to Australia, stonemasons, will be people looking to get a permanent visa eventually. And under the current scheme, the 402 scheme, which replaced the 457, the only difference is, and then there is a difference, you need to have worked for the employer for 3 years rather than 2 under the old 457 scheme. And to get the permanent visa, it's no longer vocational English. You need to have competent English. Anyway, you've got 3 years to do that. If you can't do it within 3 years, you'll have a 4-year visa, and unless the department changes the regulations or the laws about what occupations are eligible, you should be able to get a further 4 years. Now, the maximum age you can get a permanent visa is 45 years of age, okay? But there's no limit on age for a 402 visa. That's all I'd like to say for now on that.
Okay then, thank you very much. And we will sign off now, but we hope that this little footage will give some sort of an idea about, the major player from the Australian side, so to speak. And then I'm hoping that I'm going to bring this footage back to to Manila, and hopefully I will also bring from Manila the other stakeholders or other players from the Philippines, so that we hopefully one day will meet one another, and then let's see whether we can sort of start the ball rolling there. Okay, this is me, Preston CHOW, signing off, and this is
Frank NIRTA signing off,
and then VASILOPOULOS signing off.
Okay then, thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, do you want this on your